In the same way that the hypodermic needle theory was wrong because it said the media was extremely powerful and we were basically helpless, the minimal effects theory was also wrong, that the media has no effect on us. Both those things are wrong. The first phase was wrong, the second phase was wrong. And so what happened in the research is we sort of went the wrong direction, the media is extremely powerful, to the wrong direction, the media is powerless, to where we are right now. The dominant idea now, and the research now, focuses on the effect of the media on citizens' preferences again, what our preferences are. But the dominant theory is something called the subtle effects theory. That's the dominant thinking now among people who go ahead and study the media. And I'll just tell you, I fully buy this. I fully buy this research. I think it's extremely solid. I think this does a great job of explaining how the media affects us. And this guy wrote this one sentence in this book in 1962 that really summarizes the subtle effects theory. And I want to read it, and I'm actually going to read it again. The mass media may not be successful much of the time in telling people what to think, but the media are stunningly successful in telling their audiences what to think about. The media is not good at telling you what to think. It can't tell you what to think, because the hypodermic needle theory is not true. But it can go ahead and shape what you're thinking about, because the minimal effects theory is not true as well. They do have an impact. The media is not particularly good at telling people what to think, but they're stunningly successful in telling their audiences what to think about. That's the subtle effects theory. And so what I want to do is I want to talk about three particular kinds of effects that we've identified. Now, when I say three particular kinds of effects, these are things where we've seen how the media affects the way people understand politics. We've demonstrated it over and over again, sometimes in experiments, sometimes in surveys, but it's just, at least for me, this isn't even up for, this is settled. This is like the law of gravity. This is done. This is what we know about the way the media affects us. So the first thing I want to do is I want to talk about something called the agenda setting effect. The agenda setting effect. And once again, this has been demonstrated over and over and over again in research.
It's still considered a theory, though, right?
What's the distinction? There's a theory of...
Theory and a law are not the same.
Yeah, I wouldn't give anything in political science the status of law. Right?
The law of gravity is, you can't argue with it.
Right. Well,
yeah.
Well, something could change.
Well, I mean, you can argue with anything, but I'm saying, if you get on top of this building and you step off,
you will fall.
You will fall.
Okay, but here's the thing. I have a theory. You call it gravity, but I call it the theory of Mother Earth. Everything in the world wants to return to its home. And so this pen, for example, if I just leave it here, it's going to run to its mother. Watch. See? I've just explained that with a different theory. Right? Now, I'm not suggesting that that should replace the theory of gravity, but theories are really hard to prove 100%. And we don't know whether, like in the law of gravity, whether the conditions that we've observed, we've only been here for a relatively small amount of time, if polarities switch and something changes. But yes, I would not call anything in political science a law.
But you could say under the current conditions, the law of gravity. I mean,
well, as soon as you qualify it though, then you're allowing for the possibility that could change. But anyways, I definitely would not call these laws. Not even close. Nothing in political science is a law, because these are all general trends. So here's the agenda setting effect. The more coverage that an issue receives in the mass media, the more importance the public tends to place on it. The more coverage that an issue receives in the mass media, the more importance the public tends to place on it. If the media is covering the economy a lot, if when you turn on the TV or you read the newspaper or you look at the internet or you go onto Yahoo News or whatever, and you see that the media is going ahead and covering what's going on in the economy, if later on you get a phone call from Gallup and they ask you, what's the most important issue of the day, you're going to say the economy. If the coverage shifts and all of a sudden they start covering the war in Afghanistan a lot, now 3 weeks they've been covering the war in Afghanistan, talking about what's going on, discussions about whether we should pull out or stay, that's been going on. You call people up and you say, what's the most important issue of the day? People will say, the war in Afghanistan. Pardon?
That's what they're doing right now, covering Afghanistan.
Right after that massacre. Wow, that was awful. Did you guys hear about that?
16 citizens, right?
Yeah, this soldier left his base, a special ops guy, right? Yes.
Well, I don't know. Well, like there was some.
Walked out of his base in Afghanistan, walked about a mile to this village, and then just wasted 16 people.
And then, like they said, there were some accounts of people who like saw that there were a group of like drunk soldiers, like not only just one. So maybe like depending on which time you look, like they could have either been one and then more came behind it.
Oh, because I've only heard that they have the one guy in custody.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Children,
But-
right?
Yeah, there was like 9 kids and
That they saw they shot.
walked into 3 houses.
Yeah.
That's great. I mean,
His mind went.
yeah. I mean, it's
Wow.
awful. It's just awful. So, and then all the hard work that's been put into that point can be just wiped out. And he was in an area where they've been making progress and sort of winning over the population. All it takes is one thing, that you can just destroy it in one moment. So, very sad. So if all of a sudden this starts getting a ton of coverage to the exclusion of everything else, and they're covering the war in Afghanistan, people will start saying the war in Afghanistan is the most important thing. Now, again, I want to point out that if the media is covering the economy the most, and they won't be able to tell you what you should think about the economy. You might be, if you're somebody who supports President Obama, when you're thinking about the economy, you'd be saying, well, the private sector has added, 200,000 jobs in the last 3 months. The economy is getting better. The stock market's going up. If you're somebody who doesn't support the president, you'll be talking about other things. We have people who've been unemployed for years and years, and they still can't get a job. We have young people who have been unemployed for an extremely long amount of time. The national debt is going up tremendously. The projected growth is very low. The media won't tell you we won't be able to tell you what to think, but they will have you talking about the economy. The media is not particularly good at telling people what to think, but they're stunningly successful at telling people what to think about. Same thing with the war in Afghanistan. You may be somebody who says, we need to get the hell out of there, right? You may be somebody who says, look, we put so much time and energy there, we can't pull out now, or all those lives that have been lost were lost in vain. The media won't be able to tell you what you should think about Afghanistan, but they will be able to shape what you're thinking about. Now the question is that a good thing, or is it a bad thing? If we know that this agenda-setting effect is true, and it actually happens, is it a good thing for our democracy? What's its effect on citizens' ability to make good decisions? Does it help or does it hurt? Is it a positive thing or is it a negative thing? And what I want to suggest to you is that it's both. It can be positive in this regard. It can be positive in this regard. Journalists like to cover what they think are the most important issues. I think that you can make a strong argument that the economy is the most important issue right now, given what we're going through. And if you look at most of the coverage is about the economy. Well, if journalists have us thinking about the economy, that provides us information about the major issues that we should be thinking about. If they're talking about the economy in Afghanistan, they're informing us about important issues. And that's going to make it easier for us to decide who to support and who to oppose, because we're going to have the information we need to make wise decisions. We may not all agree, right? But we're going to have the information that we need because they're covering the important issues. We're hearing about the important issues, so we're able to decide, do we want to support the Republican nominee? Do we want to support President Obama? Do we want to vote for a Democrat for Congress? Do we want to vote for a Republican? We'll be able to decide that. So if they're talking about important issues, it can have a positive effect. But it can also have a negative effect as well. Because sometimes the media focuses on issues that are not particularly important. Sometimes they provide information about minor issues, about things that aren't that big of a deal, and they go ahead and they make them sound like they're a big deal. And I want to give you an example of what I'm talking about, but I have to stop this.